Hello, and welcome to our next presentation. This is day 3 of the final day of the symposium. And on behalf of the MIT CDOIQ Virtual Symposium, we would like to thank all our sponsors who have sponsored the symposium this year. Please keep a lookout for a very special survey that we'll be sending out shortly. In the meantime, let me thank our sponsors, Deloitte Informatica, Privacy Analytics, ZEF, Fusion Alliance, KPMG, Santel Consultants, Tamer, Elation, Ali Data, Big ID, Boomi, Caserta, Citizen, Data Kitchen, Garage, Okira, Pylog, Click, ThoughtSpot, Eckerson, Global ID, Snowflake, and Starburst. Please take a chance to go to Content Hub, see what content they have, download that, and if you get a chance, reach out to our partners. Without our partners, we would not be able to hold a symposium. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in 2021.
Hi everyone, and welcome to day 3. You made it. Thank you very much indeed. It's been a real pleasure being part of your host team and talking about the wonderful presentations. And speaking of wonderful presentations, we have one coming up very shortly. We do want to steal a couple of minutes of Mario's time to just talk about a couple of final thoughts. So first of all, yesterday we had most of the world, well, some of the world connecting into us. We had people from United States, Brazil, Canada, Germany, South Africa, United Kingdom, France, Finland, Italy, and Israel. However, we need your help to make this whole map red by next year. So we look forward to your help, and we'll be able to share that with you. In addition, I'd like to have Dr. Rich Wine talk about this one. Dr. Rich Wine.
Oh, a second. I'm on mute.
Yep. We can hear you now.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to the whole world next year. Mark your calendar on July 20th to 22nd at MIT. We plan to have 500 people at MIT and 2,500 people globally. Okay. And you have the whole world in your hands. I want to have a special thanks to Robert Lutton, who produced the entire program. He is a superstar. Thank you. Back to Robert.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. It is teamwork makes the dream work. For all our attendees, we love that you like, share, and post. Just as an FYI, we will be talking about final prizes will be announced at our town hall. And of course, thank you all for your support. We do want to just remind people, we mentioned it at the beginning of day 3, we have announced our country CDO ambassadors. These are our first 10 inaugural ambassadors. More are coming. We'll reach out to them, and we will be looking to have as many of our ambassadors as we can come back to the symposium and present next year. So keep an eye out for those people spreading the word. Obviously, if you missed any session and we know that there's a lot of great content, if you want to look at a session that you may have missed because you're watching another one, you can go and see the list of the past recordings. We will hold this site open for registered attendees until we find a permanent home for it. We're looking at how we actually do that. So if you click on the top right-hand button on the screen there, and then you'll see a drop-down of particular sessions. If you do it in each one of the separate tracks, you'll then be able to find out the sessions that run in that track. And obviously, if you do it at the top one, you'll see the keynotes that will appear there for replaying. So please go ahead and use that. Prizes. So we want to thank our sponsors. We've done everything we can to have our attendees go visit our sponsors. And so what we will do is our passport, people who have completed the passport, we will announce them and send you an email that you've won that. And second, we are about to launch a survey to all our attendees inbox. It's 5 short questions. We're asking for some feedback. And for anyone that completes it, we will be entered into a drawing for the remaining 50 dot prizes. So it gives everyone an easy chance to go in, create the survey, just hit, it's 5 questions. You can do it on a break, and then get back to us, and then we will announce the winners. It's all virtual at the end of the day. And again, we thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you all in 2021. So with that, let me actually introduce our keynote speaker from Gartner Research, Mario Faria, if I pronounce that correctly this time, from the Gartner Research Board, who will be talking about the CDO 4.0 operating model, how the role of the Chief Data Officer is evolving. So Mario, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Robert, and all the team at MIT for inviting me to be here. And interesting fact, the last time that I was here delivering a presentation was in 2013. And actually time flies. And as time flies, we know that we are living such hard moment today. However, nothing will last forever. And definitely the world will get so much better as we go along. And I love to be here for one reason. Professor Richard was the one who was able to get my first job as a CDO. So thank you so much, Professor Richard, to meeting the CEO of the company that was first appointed as a CDO at 2011. And this is an image, a picture that we took together when one of the Professor Richard's visits to Brazil. So my true appreciation for having been part of this community for so long. So I work for a department at Gartner Research Board, and we work with the largest corporations in the world in a mix of a think tank model, research, and services. And our team is responsible to look at the trends and insights and helping the CDOs from those large corporations to see what's going on differently and observing trends. And what we're trying to find out. First, a motivation for the change. Let me tell you, DNA as we know it is not working, period. So I remember my first meeting at the MIT CDO conference, and we're talking about how to make governance a priority, how to tell the importance of data, how to put data quality programs together, how to make sure that we are doing the right things. And guess what? After 10 years, we're still talking about the same topics, okay? So we, as DNA leaders, we are not doing a good job. There is a tremendous failures in the market in DNA projects because we are not acting as change agents. We try to boil the ocean. We are not exploring communications as we should. We are still stumbling on how to put governance programs together, okay? However, there are some people out there that are doing an amazing job on that because people are succeeding. Some CDOs are being appointed as CEOs. They're taking other roles. They might be doing something so well. And at Research Board, we start to look at those successful patterns. So we are not happy with the status quo for quite some time. So we start looking for some patterns out there, and we find a common thread or a common backbone for the CDOs who are doing a good job. And the common backbone is, instead of just thinking about projects, they were embracing the product management discipline in order to encapsulate all the complexity that's out there on this data analytics world to provide a vision that the users can understand and can embrace that. So when we found that, say, aha, that might be something that we have out there. And the more we explore, the more we talk to other CDOs out there, we found that the common thread was quite important. And before I came to Gartner at the end of 2014, I put together a Venn diagram that correlated how the work was evolving from the model 1.0, CDOs focus on data management, to the 2.0, CDOs embracing analytics, to the 3.0, where CDOs were embracing the digital transformation. And I put that at the end of 2014, and Dave Matheson from the CDO Club really liked what I put, and he presented at the South by Southwest Conference in 2015. That got a tremendous attention. So what I did, okay, we took that initial vision and we defined it as CDO 4.0, the DNA leaders out there who are embracing the product management discipline to drive tangible results, okay? And we put that vision in 2019, and guess what? We are so successful because we got tremendous exposure out there from the several media outlets in the world, from a lot of DNA leaders who were not talking to us before, say, hey, I'm doing that. Is this the right thing? Say, yeah, we think it is, because you are hiding every complexity from your users. And what we do after we have those marketing exposure, we produce t-shirts. So we start producing t-shirts and to spread our message through a larger audience. So one might say, what is a data product? A data product is a way that you can encapsulate your raw data, your complexity on dealing with integrating the data, analysis, algorithms, applications, and so on, in terms of hiding that from your user. So it's quite easy to understand a product when you look at analytics in terms of a self-driving car, social media application, way that you can track diseases or automation and so on. So it's quite easy when you look at analytics. But guess what? A data product can be, and it is being used by CDOs to look at data management. So we're seeing several CDOs looking at creating a product for data quality internally, looking at how to deal with customer data in an integrated way, implementing platforms for data hub and spoke model to do that. Companies who deal with a lot of data ingestion from several sources, they are creating a product to deal with all the data ingestion. And in industries that are highly regulated, such as the financial services and healthcare, there are CDOs who are putting all the reports for the agencies under a product, okay? And one of the things that they are doing there is they are embracing the data ops operating model in order to drive a framework to create those products. I've seen a lot of CDOs and DNA leaders out there who talk about DevOps. Well, that's great, but DevOps does not support everything that you need to do. So if you're not familiar with data ops and all the derivatives that came up there, such as model ops, AI ops, ML ops, take a look at that because you might be surprised. So what is a data product teams? Kind of sense, yeah, a data product team is formed by what we know. People who understand the business, people who understand the data, people who know analytics, but there are a few functions that are coming up right after that. One of that, you need a product manager or a product owner, someone who will provide the roadmap for your product, who will think big, who will discuss the roadmap of the product, who will communicate that. And I'm talking here about data products for end user organizations. For vendors, technology vendors or data vendors, they're so familiar with that. But for end users, that's a change that you need to do. Another trend that we are seeing is that the adoption of the customer success model for end user organizations. So for example, it's not just defining your product team, your engineering team who's going to be building the product, your delivery support, but an organization or a team or one person initially who's going to be working with your stakeholders in order to realize the value from the product that you are creating. Okay, so I work for a research board, and let me tell you what we have done so far for the members of the board. We are promoting this new way to look at product management at scale. We are learning from other members on how they are doing that and provide a feedback loop in our think tank model for others to embrace. And we are, fortunately to say, we're helping to shape the future of this industry and to help you with your role. So what we have done, we put a vision, we put several reports, we created a blueprint on how to help the leaders to embrace this methodology. And we put together also a self-assessment toolkit that you can measure where you are in your journey to make sure that you're going to concentrate the resources that you have in your hands to do the right things, okay? And now let's start with the practitioners, people who embrace that vision, who are doing such a tremendous work on that. So I'm so glad to have here two of the people that I have been working with for quite some time, that I can say that I became friends with. Rob Lowe from Healthcare Service Corporation and Gahl from ZEF. So I would like you to turn your cameras and your microphones because, hey, you are on the spotlight right now. And I'll start with you, Gahl, to ask a first question. So first of all, good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning.
Are you there, Gahl?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't think, can I see your image? Yeah, I can see you now. Okay, good morning. So Gahl, first, tell us about ZEF Group. What's your company and why your role is so different from the traditional DNA leader?
Cool. Thank you, Mario. So ZEF is one of the top automotive suppliers. We supply to practically all car companies in the world. We also have a very big truck and agriculture and off-road business. And we do things like transmissions, we do things like vehicle safety systems, ADAS, which are the cameras that you see in cars. And what my role is, my title at ZEF is the Vice President of Data Monetization and Venture Acceleration. So in the data monetization component, I'm responsible for bringing data-based products, just like you described, to market. And in the venture acceleration, I'm responsible for two of our portfolio companies, Kari Wallet, which is a blockchain transaction platform for mobility, and OpenMatics, which is a telematics company. And the nutshell of the answer to your question is I'm basically responsible for driving P&L around data and connectivity.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's a trend that we have been observing. Lots of DNA leaders out there being responsible for P&L. Rob Lowe, now it's to you. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. So tell us, what is HCSC and when did you start your product management journey out there?
Thank you, Mario. So HCSC is a little known Chicago headquartered company, but we're very large in terms of our presence in the US. We're the largest customer health plan and the 5th largest health insurer overall. We're part of the Blue Cross Blue Shield network of health plans that delivers healthcare coverage to 1 in 3 Americans. We actually own the franchise for 5 states, Illinois, Montana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, and Texas. And we count among our customers large employers as well as small employers across the country. Our core business is paying claims, providing affordable access to care, and administering benefits that ultimately are designed to encourage our members to live healthier and have productive lives. That's essentially what we do. Now, Mario, you asked about the data analytics journey. It's been a fascinating journey. It's been about 2 years in the making. Data analytics at the enterprise scale is relatively new. I came on board in 2018 as the first enterprise leader in this space, and really with a mandate to shake things up. And the leadership recognized that there was a need to increase the metabolic rate of decision making. That was essentially the mandate. Very broad, not well defined. So we immediately launched a program that we called Data to Value. And we didn't know at the time, but through conversation with you, we now clearly have leveraged a lot of the blueprint from the 4.0 playbook. And the real focus was making sure we had fast, iterative, consumable data analytics assets that were actually going to be used. And that was the big focus, was being outcome driven, just given the industry we're in. So we had to shift to a product mindset quickly. And it was a wholesale shift culturally for the company. So what does that mean? It essentially meant new ways of working, new ways of investing, new ways of organizing. So we had to create new roles. We had to create the data product manager role you described. Also things like analytics, engineering hadn't really been considered. And then we had to make sure the products could be used by the common man. And I would say that in the case of our models had to be easy and intuitive. and be accessible in existing workflows for our frontline staff to actually leverage the benefits of AI. And that's been our sort of our underpinnings of our success so far, has been we started with that focus, and it's really helped make sure we're moving forward. So in terms of level of maturity, we've come a long way in the 2 years. I'd say the key thing is, and the product journey has allowed us, is we now have accountability and a seat at the top table. So in terms of we're reporting structure, we report to the head of operations and are involved in strategy, investments, innovation. And it's really only possible because we forged that path using many of the ingredients you described in the CDO 4.0 thesis.
Thank you, thank you. Folks, from those who are in the audience there, Rob and Gahl are here to answer your questions. So if you'd like to ask them a question, put on the chat button. I will take them and I will send for them to answer your questions, okay? So Gahl, let me come back to you. What drove you to embrace the product management discipline, and what type of data products you and your team are coming up together? You're on mute. Hello, I think you're on mute again.
Let's just check the MVP team. Can they just check that Gahl's audio is working? It seems that...
Yeah, I think we've just dropped Gahl's audio. His mic is on. He might honestly have to reconnect. Might be the only solution. But okay. He is on. He's not muted.
Okay, I'll wait till Gahl to do that. Again, for the audience, please start sending your questions. So Rob, I'll come back to you. Healthcare. We are passing through this moment of COVID-19. There was still living a crisis, but the crisis was much worse a few months ago. So what have you and your team have done during the crisis?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mario. I'd say COVID-19 upended everything for us. I'd be lying if I said I was personally prepared for this. Like the rest of the system, I think we were blindsided. And it's critical for us as a health insurance. We very much view ourselves as an integral part of healthcare delivery in America, especially in the 5 states we serve. So it was important that we step up to the plate and help. So from a leadership level, I would say that our CEO, Maurice Smith, rallied the entire company around our mission. And we're unusual, we're a not-for-profit company. So our mission is at the center of what we do. So everything we do is to stand with our members in sickness and health. That's sort of our mantra. So from a data analytics standpoint, it actually arrived at a critical point in our maturity and development. You know, in March, we're in the cusp of being viewed as a critical asset. But I have to say there's still doubts lingered about at the executive level whether we could execute with the speed and purpose required. I joke, even my own boss, Dr. Ernest, who runs the operations, said, you need to show me the value of data analytics. And this was a real opportunity for us to show her and the rest of the C-suite that we could play a central role in the corporate response. So essentially we did 5 things. First, I think we demonstrated situational leadership. So we had inherited different business partners across the enterprise who were trying to solve this. So we galvanized and organized them in a way that we could have a common approach to delivering data and insights as the pandemic evolved. So that was the first thing. Second is we created a data hub and a sort of universal reporting structure that allowed everyone to have a trusted source for analytics. And that included a cockpit view for our senior team, so they could get up-to-date, up-to-minute reports on how the virus was evolving and how the risk of it posed to our members. And then we really showed the mettle of advanced analytics. So we hosted new forecasting and predictive analytics capabilities, showing off our data science expertise that we developed quickly. So things like a predictive risk algorithm that learned the associations between member attributes, so their health conditions, and the risk factors that existed in the external environment. And then we embedded that in the core sort of care application. So very much about that product mindset, we had to plug into the existing framework and make sure our case managers, our nurses could reach out to the members involved. So that was really a strength there. And then we also partnered with the frontline staff to actually operate some AI-powered tools we developed. So, for example, in Oklahoma, we built a tool that helped optimize the deployment of our mobile care vans, who are working with the state to deliver routine, deliver COVID-19 testing, education, and guiding people to points of care as it evolved. And then we also were identifying potential hotspots or clusters that were going to impact our clients or members. So that really helped enormously. And then finally, we also helped our own employees. So workforce analytics, data assets that enabled remote working were critical. And one of the successes was HCSC moved 24,000 employees to remote working within 10 working days. So that was just a big test. So what COVID-19 really showed for us was that we could integrate into the fabric and culture of HCSC and deliver. And as sort of allowed us to be viewed as a core asset now. It wasn't the case 2 years ago.
Yeah, congratulations for what you did in terms of the society. The work you guys did was amazing. So Gahl, you're there now, right?
Yes.
Everything's working good. So tell us about what drove you to start using product management, and what types of data products and you and your team are coming up with, please.
So the way we look at the product landscape at ZEF is we look at enhanced products that take our existing vehicle systems and the data from those systems and creates new value from them. And I'll give you some examples. And the other is what we call expand, where we go to create new revenue opportunities for the company. And when you look at the enrich category, you look at some of the vehicle systems that we have, like chassis systems or braking systems. And what we, in all our systems are electronic. They have an electronic component, they collect data. So the question is, what can we do with that data beyond its original engineering intent? So in the case of some of our chassis system, we were able to take data that we're already capable of collecting and use that for the purposes of predictive maintenance, use that for the purpose of estimating the load on the vehicle, use it for the purpose of road condition monitoring, and use it for the purpose of identifying irregular events that happen to the vehicle. And those are all monetizable. So the predictive maintenance, we have a use case which is $400 a year per fleet vehicle. Load monitoring, $300 a year for a light commercial vehicle in Europe, where the regulations are starting to require that. So basically, once you get into that business, you have a product. You need to, all the things that you have there, and I really like your definition of a data product as masking the complexity of a lot of different things. And that's essentially what we do. We basically, we can go into an OEM and say, we're going to give you, in the case of the chassis, we're going to give you these following services, and you can sell them to your fleet. So we basically, and that's really important to the company for two reasons. The first is, of course, it's a new revenue stream. And the other, it makes the core business more competitive, because if you are an OEM and you are buying a chassis system, well, would you rather buy a chassis system that just costs you money, or would you rather buy a chassis system that pays back over the life cycle of the vehicle much more potentially than you paid us in the first place, you know? So enrich is very important for us. And then expand, you know, the example is our Kari Wallet blockchain transaction platform, where we early on looked at where can we play in the emerging mobility space, because, you know, it's full of huge players. I don't have time to go into the details, but we identified this niche where we could leverage our core assets to create this opportunity to jumpstart this mobility transaction network. And we have some great successes in Europe, in particular with the trucks and fueling. So, and again, that's a product that could have come from any other type of technology company. And just like you're saying, in some ways, the traditional CDO has come from the direction of IT, or has come from the direction of compliance. but this future CDO is frankly a product, you know, and that's kind of, you know, what we do.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. So I'm going back to Rob. Rob, you don't have P&L responsibilities, but although you have product managers there. So tell about the skills that you have on your product managers. And that is one of the questions that came up from our audience here.
That's a great question. Yeah, although we don't have P&L responsibility, we do measure ourselves very much in commercial terms because this commercial mindset is critical for us. In terms of the roles we've essentially a number of roles. We have a data product manager and a data science product manager, and those two are really critical to basically manage the life cycle. And we work in a very collaborative fashion where we have cross-functional teams, or pods as we call them, where we bring those skills together with a data scientist. And important in our industry is subject matter expertise. So we have some on ours, clinical expertise or claims expertise, but then really important that we have business engagement. So we only work on projects where the business partner is willing to invest time and provide that expertise. So there's a buy-in and then there's a knowledge transfer, because I think Gahl hit it, is we need to hide the complexity of what we do. So it's really important that we have simple solutions that humans can use. And so that's how we pull them in. So we have 4 or 5 roles sort of in the frontline team, but then it's underpinned by a whole host of people who are working on building the data domains, who are architecting and sort of doing the application engineering. So that's critical. So it's a diverse set of skills, not one that you critically would think of, you know, not the broader than normal. Let's put it that way.
Good. Thank you. Someone is asking, are there other CDO 4.0s out there? Yeah, there are a bunch of other people right there that we might not even know about. One of these role models was Krishna Shariat, who was here on the first day, participating on the panel. Krishna Shariat for Bristol Myers and Squibb is another example of a CDO 4.0. Okay, Gahl. Probably our audience is very curious about the automotive industry. It's passing through a transformation. Autonomous cars, electric cars. So how do you see this industry evolving and how DNA is a major component of that?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the world of future mobility, prediction is key, okay? Because really, when you think about what mobility is all about, it's about getting people from A to B more efficiently, spending less time, spending less energy, and giving consumers the experience that they want. And at the heart of that is prediction. And that's really net the business we're in. We're in the prediction business, right? We're in the business of collecting data and using math, AI, analytics. At the end of the day, it's all math, you know, to basically predict the future. And I think that the winners are going to be those that are able to, you know, best collect the data, best able to understand what are the opportunities to turn data into good prediction, which is really what we mean by monetization. Because once you can predict something, you have a relative advantage that allows you to essentially derive the value, which is what we mean by monetization. So this whole mobility industry is going to be driven by prediction, which is driven by data, which is driven by data products. I think, again, to scale, you need to, we talked about that and Rob mentioned it too, you need to make things not complex. And when you look, for example, at a vehicle, when you look at the amount of things that generate data, okay, it's humongous. And all of those essentially come into the prediction of how this vehicle is going to perform. On top of that, if you overlay the transportation ecosystem as a whole, that's even greater. And if on top of that you lay consumer preferences, that makes it even greater. So the winners are the ones that are going to be able to find their home in this, you know, kind of ecosystem, knowing that there isn't going to be one player that controls and aggregates all this data. So I think that you know, I think that we at ZF, you know, we at least have a good view on, how can we play in this future world, but also in a way that ties into our current business, because it's easy to say, well, this is the future, so let's go invest and spend a lot of money, and then find out that you're actually robbing your core business. I think that for large companies, that's always a concern. So I think that it's going to play a greater and greater role, but for different companies, how you go about it in a way that is compatible with your company is really the question.
Thank you. So a question came from the audience. It's about digital officers and data officers. Let me tell you guys, at the end of 2017, the number of chief data analytics officers surpassed the number of chief digital officers. And there are more opportunities for CDO's data than CDO digital out there. And what we are seeing, some digital leaders are embracing DNA, some data analytics leaders are embracing this digital transformation, and so on. So the lines are getting blurred. And with that, I'll come back to you, Rob. Question from our audience in terms of, hey, you're responsible for products. How's your working relationship with IT? Because you do not report to IT like Gahl. Gahl, you are outside of IT as well. The large majority of CDOs out there are not part of IT. So we explore that on that venue, product management and the IT relationship.
No, that's a great question. So I'm very fortunate at HCSC as having a terrific partnership with our CIO, Marv Richardson. He's been a real advocate from the day I arrived for our data analytics journey. And he also exerts significant influence, both at the enterprise level, but also in his own organization. He removes roadblocks because there is inertia or cultural resistance to this new upstart capability called data analytics, and especially when it's considered as a sister to IT. I'm sure many of us experienced that who are in these kind of roles. The reality is, IT, it's a dynamic tension. And why? I mean, you have a large, almost 2,500 person IT shop that does all the corporate IT and application development at industrial scale. And you have IT processes and approaches that you need to work with and be in harmony with. They're both rigorous and planful. At the same time, my division is incented it was created for change, to be a disruptor. And success comes from being nimble, responsive, able to develop solutions iteratively and continuously show value, because they're skeptics about whether this is going to have an impact. So the practical manifestation of this is really around our approaches. So we use scaled agile, Kanban. They're maturing quicker in our area than, say, other areas of the company. And so that creates a disconnect. And so we're working on it. I wouldn't say we've got it perfectly, but fortunately, we have a very visionary CIO who's also taking his organization through the same change. We just can't go as quickly when you get 2,500 people versus the 200 I have.
That's true. That's called governance on establishing the rules of the game. Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Gahl, I'll come back to you because people are quite interested here to know about how your organization works. Because you're a global company, probably in every place in the world that they manufacture cars. ZEF is there as well. So how is your team structured? It's federated, centralized, distributed?
Yeah. So physically, my team is distributed globally. And the way we're organized is we have, I would say, functional areas. Like, we have functional areas around consumer transaction, risk insurance, CO2, ADAS, which are the camera and radar-based safety systems, sensor data monetization, predictive maintenance, product process data. So these are, if you will, the building blocks. We have these building blocks that we put together that constitute our product. And then we have partnerships with our divisions, okay? Because everything we do, or a lot of what we do in the enriched space, which is making our product more valuable through data capabilities and monetization, is done in cooperation with the division. So we have joint product teams, if you will, in partnership with the divisions. We have joint go-to-market with the division. So when we sell, let's say take the chassis system example. So we traditionally sell to the chassis people a chassis system, but the chassis people aren't really interested in the data monetization. But the chief data officer or chief digital officer at the OEM is very interested. So we have joint go-to-market teams. It's a it's a refined structure based on how our business runs and how it goes together. It's not necessarily very simple, because just like if you take a chassis system that generates data, the OEMs don't know how to buy it. It's not something they buy every day, so you need to sell it differently. You need to deliver it differently. It's definitely something new and evolving to that extent. But I think we've got some good use cases where we've seen success to learn from.
Very important point. Sometimes your users, the ones who you're designing your products for, don't know what they expect. They know their problems, but when you come up with something so innovative, they might say, "Aha, I like that a lot." So that's one of the skills that successful product managers do. So Rob, I'd like to come back to you because we have a question from the audience that's regarding a bias on data, ethics, and privacy. And you have lots of data from the members that you serve. How do you do that? How you make the data useful, but at the same time respecting everything that's out there and to promote trust?
That's a great question, and it's a challenging one. I'd say just traditionally, health insurers in America aren't trusted by consumers, just generally. We are fortunate in that, being not-for-profit, there's not a question about our motives. We clearly are member-owned and member-driven, so that helps. And then we're all governed by a regulation. We're a highly regulated industry called HIPAA, and that really protects the individual's healthcare information. And increasingly, we're seeing a lot of regulation, almost GDPR-like, in our environment. You look at California and the California Consumer Protection Act. So from a privacy standpoint, we have to take all those into consideration. And the challenge is that our core systems of record aren't engineered around the person. They're engineered around the employer or the system. So we have to refactor things to make sure that we can fulfill our regulatory obligations. So that's from the privacy side. On the ethical side, that's a great question. Ethical AI is a huge topic. It's one that implicit bias is a real concern and a reality. And so there's a number of ways you tackle that. I think we're fortunate being new. We've put a big emphasis on people and culture. So not necessarily the technology, but we've tried to engineer our team as we've grown it to reflect the members and communities we serve. So diversity in our team is tremendous. And I'd say we've made good headway in terms of hiring talent that reflects, Chicago or Dallas or Montana. I have to say we need more Hispanic Americans, because I think they're underrepresented in our world. But essentially that helps you when you have people who are building the AI, who understand that you want to have unintentional bias has to be considered. So that's sort of the first piece. The second piece is actually how you engineer the solution. So you have to build it so that it's transparent. The models are transparent. They can be explained. They can be decoupled. You can see the assumption. So we spend a lot of time making sure our assumptions are visible, and we use tools that allow us to do that. Because we know at any given point, if we put an algorithm in play and it has unintended consequences, a regulator or a business person could come forward and say, explain how you made that decision. And so that's what the point we're at, is trying to factor that into the technology. It's not easy, but I think we're making good headway. And I think it'll just become at least in the US, it'll become a cost of doing business, is to make sure that you engineer your technology to be transparent. So there's no Pandora's box of stuff, or no black box, I should say.
Bias is a topic that we could spend hours here talking about that. if you guys want to know how serious it is, I recommend a book called Weapons of Math Destruction, about the bias in data, bias in algorithms, and so on. Really good bookie, but quite scared to read. Okay, Gahl, you're part of this ecosystem of the automotive industry, that you have insurance, the manufacturers, you guys. So how do you work with the concept of data sharing, and how you collaborate in order to make better usage of data? And of course, respecting the privacy laws.
Yeah. So, the landscape, I would say, is varied. Okay, and there's, the components that are there. There is OEM data. So basically, the OEMs like BMW, GM, they basically have connectivity into their cars. They bring in the data, and if you have the appropriate business relationship, and I'll touch on consumer consent and privacy in a minute, you can get access to the data. And then the other big thing that's happening are these data exchanges. In Europe, it's driven by regulation, fear that OEMs will have monopoly over connected vehicle data, so they have these legally required data sharing platforms. And then there's also direct connectivity, where there are modems or things like that in vehicles. So there is I would say and then there's also the distinction between consumer data versus commercial data, and the GDPR requirements, on top of that. So it's pretty complex, to tell the truth, and it a lot of it goes through consumer consent, and there are mechanisms to track consumer consent with the data that you're getting, either through the OEM or through the data exchanges. But I would say that it's a source of inefficiency, because it makes it hard to aggregate all the data, and just kind of work on it uniformly. There are companies that try to solve this problem, but frankly, I think that the efficiency is not there yet. On the flip side, it's early days, okay, and I think that what the industry is waiting for, is use cases that will drive the justification for large scale, further investments. And I think the long-term future, it's probably going to be no different than what you see in credit reporting. Like you see, Equifax and those types of companies. Just the economics force the creation of these comprehensive aggregators, and they in fact deal with the privacy and all that type of stuff. So. But that to me is a long-term future thing, years and years and years away. I think where we are now, we really have to prove the value, In fact, if you look at OEMs, they're not recouping the investments they made in connectivity. And we're talking about big money, which on the one hand is good for us, because it creates a demand for data monetization, which is wonderful. But I think that once we see the money, then we'll focus on efficiency, which is kind of that's where those kind of technology solutions play.
This can be a quite interesting and next area. So when we start seeing here at Gartner how the things are evolving in terms of the struggle of data usage and respecting the laws, regulation, and ethics, one of the first moves that we did was to bring a lawyer to our team. Analyst Lydia Jones joined our organization some years ago to help structure that mindset to balance the usage and to respect the regulations. So we as leaders, we need to do a good job on there. Otherwise, guess what? Government will come here and will impose regulation on us. Rob, I'd like to change the subject here a little bit to talk about the middle management. How do you break that mode of using a product, and how do you make sure that the middle management will adopt that? Because for you, it's easy. you report out there on the hierarchy to talk to CEO and so on? How do you make sure that the people in the middle will embrace product management?
That's a great question. So as I described earlier, the breadth of the roles we have in our organization are greater than the average data analytics company or function. Why? Because I think it's all about inserting your work into the workflow. We've talked about that. So the insight to action is very dependent on the middle managers adopting. So there's two ways we do it. One, the product manager role is expected to help drive the change management of an adoption. So that's a key metric for them. So the measures of success are a lot around, was this adopted, was it used? And the way to get that is, as I mentioned earlier, is to pull that middle manager into the process so they can see and feel both the benefit and feel ownership. And then you transfer that ownership and then you help, especially teach them to fish. And so we don't call it citizen data scientists because it's got a bad rap, but we want to create people who are analytically savvy and not allergic to numbers to basically be able to use the information and analytics you provide in their day job. And the other key piece I think we found is explaining the benefits. So we measure a lot in terms of time efficiency, of streamlining, of freeing up resources to work at the highest level of their license. So we work very closely with our physicians. Doctors are obviously expensive resources. They don't really want to work for an insurance company doing document review. So if you can use optical character recognition and natural language processing to make that easier and get them to focus on the clinical decision, it just transforms the experience. And then you have people who are just singing your praises and evangelizing the benefits of AI. And that's how we sort of picture use cases. We're thinking, where can we have impact and move the needle and then build sponsorship? Because there is skepticism around the hype of AI. But if you could really tangibly show it, and the way to show it is to spend time with people. So we're very connected to the front line.
Yeah, technology is easy. You can acquire even cloud computing. You can change any process. You can get access to any data you want. But guess what? We have the bottleneck called people. People is the weakest link of this equation here. You better know how to do it right with the people in your team, people that you influence, otherwise you'll fail miserably. Gahl, the way that you design products for me is amazing, because your team, your product managers come up with metrics of success before anything else. I'd like you to explore that concept because I think it's so cool.
Yeah, thank you, Mario. Yeah, we're I would say that in when we have a discipline, okay, that we call predictable business, and when somebody comes up with a hypothesis about a business opportunity, they need to have some financial metrics and performance metrics, right? And we use that to drive the product, and really what our product development or product management practice is all about reducing the risk of the predictions of these metrics, right? So basically, we believe that we can deliver this, this, and that, and what's our level of certainty? And when you think about it, for us, product management is really all about reducing the risk around these predictive metrics. So if you will, we eat our own dog food in that respect, about prediction, right? And we basically have a very disciplined process around this predictable business thing. So that's how we do it.
Good. All right. Start with the metrics of success, then everything will fold from that. I love that. So I'll come back to you, to Rob, again. So when you're looking at products and defining products and so on, how do you deal with everything related to governance, to quality, to ethics and trust? How do you do that in your planning of a product?
So I think it comes into the core methodology. We spent a lot of time of making sure that we had a product development methodology that took these things into consideration at the outset, so they weren't afterthoughts. So governance is key. I would say we're still learning, but we have made leaps and bounds. I think the key thing here is really, as I mentioned earlier, on making sure that things are explainable, things are transparent, and visible to the end customer builds that confidence. The other piece of the pie really is making sure that the quality is there. So we put big emphasis on zero defects and that kind of development. So we aspire to be zero defect, but that's not necessarily true. So we were lucky last year to have a performance goal that essentially was 5% of everyone's pay at HCSC around data quality. And so that quickly got the attention of the rank and file and allowed us to work very closely with the business units to really focus on making sure that the data inputs into our systems were of higher quality, so the outputs could be of higher quality. And we've continued that trend, and we've seen a 30% reduction in data incidents, data defects year on year, to the point where now in some areas there is that zero defect culture is living. So that's been tremendously useful. That was the carrot and the stick type approach. And then we've just had to staff a team, candidly, of experts around data quality. And they are small, but they're very effective.
Thank you. Thank you. Go. One question from the audience. Hey, are your product managers responsible for adoption, for the success, to make sure that the products that they create will be rolled out successful, or you have another team that does that?
They're absolutely responsible for success of their product. That's our product managers are like mini entrepreneurs, and they're responsible for the success of their products, soup to nuts.
Excellent. Good. So we're coming to the end of our discussion here, which was great. And I'd like to come back to you, Rob, okay? For people out there who are really embracing this product management adoption, the CDO 4.0, and you have been on the journey for quite some time, what would you recommend someone to do to go successful on that journey?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the big lesson learned for me is really being around just stepping back and understanding the organizational culture. So where is this company ready for the full pivot from project to product? Because I think I learned early in my journey that we weren't quite there. And so we had to step back and you had to compromise. So the blueprint is very helpful in that you can measure your effectiveness across the 5 different attributes that Gartner outlines. And then you hone in and focus on those. So I think my lesson learned has been, I sort of stumbled over the pieces that we haven't been effective at. And I'd say monetization is one that's a struggle to communicate to your business partners, because we are not for profit. So monetization sounds like a dirty word when it comes to data. You don't want to be talking in terms of making money from data, but the concept is important, that you really have that idea of it having some tangible value. So I'd say from my lesson learned has been focus on, understand and focus in the areas where you're going to struggle just because of the culture of the company, and patience is necessary. Our big learning is our financial processes are not set up for value stream and product funding yet. We've had to sort of compromise. It's very much project led, because there hasn't been that trust in funding something as new as data analytics for a multiple year project. We're getting there, but we're not there. So those would be my lessons learned. Really focus on understanding culture and where the weaknesses are in terms of being able to adopt the blueprint.
Thank you. Gahl, I'm going to pass the ball to you, but before I pass, I'd like to tell the audience something. When Gartner Research Board was looking for successful partners and successful DNA leaders out there, we found Gahl. Okay, so before we crafted the name CDO 4.0, we found Gahl as someone who was doing such an amazing job on managing P&L, create DNA products. And his case was so interesting that a month ago, we created a very interesting case that's available in our website for subscribers. Gahl, for being there, for being one of the people who helped us to shape this idea of CDO 4.0, what you recommend here for the audience, for the people who are going on that journey?
Yeah, I think that you have a great opportunity to help your business partner or your business customer by better understanding their customer. And I think a lot of what we did, a lot of the success I can trace back to that. So our company, our business partners, they want to sell more chassis systems. So how can we help them sell more chassis systems? Well, let's monetize the data from the chassis. Let's open another channel to the OEM. I think that, you know, that's how you transition from being a service provider, which is, you know, service provider is let me help you do what you're going to do better, to let me help you do things you never thought you could do before. And I think that's kind of the, you know, I would say really boils down to the source of our success.
Fantastic. The art of the possible.
Yep.
Show ideas. Fantastic. Gahl, thank you. So I would like to wrap up what we discussed here. First of all, please let me know if my presentation is coming up. I think it has. So a big thank you to you two. Really appreciate for you taking the time of your busy day to be here with this MIT CDO community. Great people who I hope were able to learn a thing or two about your line of thinking, your points here. Thank you. So how do you start your product management journey, your CDO 4.0 journey? There's just one thing that you need to do. Step one is start with your own team. Make sure that people that work for you understand about that. You might need to bring external talent, you might need to bring external help, but if you do not start with your own team, you're not ever going to be able to promote this culture change that's necessary and communicate with your stakeholders the change. Don't just go there and say, hey, what do you need me to do? No, forget about that. Challenge them, bring the art of the possible, bring examples, do something that they never thought about doing that. Challenge them that you have a stronger chance of succeed. In partnership with the MIT CDO team, you will be receiving an email soon in September to participate in the Gartner 2020 Chief Data Officer Survey. That's the most comprehensive and largest CDO survey in the world, which I have a pleasure to participate in the initial surveys. I'm not involved just as a guider on that. So you're going to receive a mail from Professor Richard to participate on that. One of the topics, one of the hypotheses that we're going to be testing there is about where you are on your product management journey, so we can see where this market has been evolved. With that, no further ado, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you, Gahl. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Professor Richard, Robert, and all the great MIT team. And thank you all for being here in this conversation today.
Mario, on behalf of the Symposium, you are a true friend, and Gartner is a friend of the Symposium, so we thank you. And we also thank Gahl and Robert for graciously providing your time during the Symposium. I can tell you, as I was, working all the questions there and providing them to you, that it was a well-attended and lots of feedback and lots of positive comments to Gahl, Rob, and yourself. So thank you for that. Guys, I know we're just running over just slightly. I'm just going to give you one last screenshot. We're about to go to a break here, but what we'd like to suggest is that to further the cubic framework research for CDOs, please come to the town hall meeting at the end of the day to listen to Professor Madnick describe his latest research and ways for you to participate. Town hall meeting today is at 4:35 p.m. So we just wanted to put that in there. And Gahl, Rob, and Mario, thank you. We hope to see you at future CDO events. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.